Well, good morning. We're going to take this week, and in 2 weeks' time, I'm speaking again. We're going to do a little two-part series, okay, as long as Kat doesn't give birth before then. And we're going to look at two miracles of Jesus from the book of John in the Bible. Okay, so we've been doing a little bit of John over this year already, so hopefully you know lots of the themes and the ideas in it. This week, we're going to look at the feeding of the 5,000. And then in a couple of weeks' time, we're going to look at the healing at the pool in John 5. So we're in John 6 today. I guess you've got a Bible, then open it up. We're in John chapter 6. And I love looking at the miracles of Jesus because John tells us later in John chapter 20 exactly why Jesus performs these. Right? He tells us in John 20 verse 30, Jesus performed many other signs in the presence of his disciples, which are not recorded in this book. But these are written, why? One, that you may believe that Jesus is the Messiah, the Son of God. And two, that by believing you may have life in his name. So that we're left without any doubt as we look at the miracles of Jesus today and in a couple of weeks' time. What should the outcome be? Number one, if you don't yet believe in Jesus, then you're going to bow the knee to him. And number two, if you have already believed in Jesus, then you're going to have life in his name. John describes it as life to the full, now with God at the heart of everything I do, I am, and live for. So that's our prayer as we come to these miracles, that we would encounter Jesus in believing in his name and receiving life in his name. Father, may that be true for us today. Now, so feeding of the 5,000. This is a really interesting miracle. Hands up who's heard of the feeding of the 5,000 before or read it in some way. Okay, it's quite a popular one, isn't it? In fact, it's one of only two miracles that is in all four accounts of Jesus' life, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. The other one being the very resurrection of Jesus. So it is quite an important miracle for some reason. But I want to say, don't let familiarity rob us of fresh revelation today. Because so often when we hear these Sunday school stories, Jesus said that thing, it can so easily just, over the top of us. Now let's engage our hearts and our souls and pray, Lord, teach us fresh things from this today. So let's delve in. All we're going to do is we're going to work through the passage. We're going to pull out some amazing truths about Jesus and all that he's done. We're going to try and learn some lessons for ourselves, and then we'll come into land, and then we're done. Okay? Is that all right? So let's start right at the start. John chapter 6, starting at verse 1. Sometime after this, Jesus crossed to the far shore of the Sea of Galilee, that is the Sea of Tiberias, and a great crowd of people followed him because they saw the signs he had performed by healing those who were ill. Then Jesus went up on a mountainside and sat down with his disciples. The Jewish Passover festival was near. When Jesus looked up and saw a great crowd coming towards him, he said to Philip, "Where shall we buy bread for these people to eat?" He asked this only to test him, for he already had in mind what he was going to do. So imagine the scene. Jesus has been going around doing his ministry, speaking words that people have received with either life or rejection. He's been performing amazing miracles, so much so that people look at him and are like, wow, there is something unusual about this man. And so people have started to follow him. And so here there's this great crowd of people following Jesus, even across the water. Maybe they crossed maybe they ran around the edge and they've come to the same place. And yet there's a problem that Jesus identifies in that they're hungry. He's like, how are we going to feed these people? And yet we know from the other Gospels, Jesus' heart is one of compassion in this moment. When he sees the crowds, he has compassion. When he sees the hungry, he has grace for them. He wants to give them lavishly what the people don't deserve. And it's interesting, verse 6, isn't it? That Jesus asks Philip this question, where shall we buy bread for these people to eat? And it says he asked this not because he needed an answer, but to kind of test them, He knew what he was already going to do. Jesus' question was not to learn, but to lead. He was saying to the disciples, are you fully dependent on me as the Jesus who can do miracles? Are you looking to me as the God of the universe come to earth to serve and to seek the lost? Or are we going to try and figure out a practical way of doing this, And so, verse 7, Philip answered Jesus, it would take more than half a year's wages to buy enough bread for each one to even have a bite. Do you see Philip go straight to the practical solution? He starts doing the maths, doesn't he? He's like, well, we've got this many people, and that would be half a year's wages for each person to just have one bite. Jesus, this is not possible. We can't feed all these people. We're going to have to just turn them away. And this is really interesting. This is something I've learned in marriage over the years, being married to the beautiful, beautiful Catherine, that when my wife says to me something, like I've got this going on, or just chatting about something in life, my instant reaction is to try and fix that. Anyone relate to that? We want to problem solve, And she's there. Ultimately, she wants my compassion, she wants my love, she wants my support, she wants me to say, I love you and we're going to figure this out together. Any men react with that, recognize that? Yeah. There's definitely some wives sitting there giggling. But it is a bit of a danger for us men, isn't it? We go straight to the solution, and often that's done because our way of showing love is by doing action, is by problem solving. It's not a bad thing necessarily. But Jesus here, sisters, you get this amazingly right. You listen. It's beautiful. You engage, you understand the emotion. Jesus here is not wanting a practical solution, but he's wanting his disciples to, just bow the knee before him and say, Jesus, you are the miracle worker. You can do this. The maths doesn't work. And so, verse 8, another of his disciples, Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, spoke up. Here is a boy with 5 small barley loaves and 2 small fish. But how far will they go among so many? See, Andrew there, he identifies the source of the miracle correctly. And yet he doesn't see its potential. He says, look, Jesus, here's 5 loaves, here's 2 fish, but that's it. He doesn't see the potential in it. Rather, he sees that's a blocker. How can this feed so many people? It can't, Jesus. This is impossible. What are we going to do? Interestingly, the little boy who was there was the only one, clearly, who had come prepared to spend the whole day sitting at the knees of Jesus, learning from his teaching. Everyone else thought they were going to be there for a half-an-hour message, back home for luncheon time. But this little boy had faith to come and just eat his lunch and enjoy the teaching of Jesus, perhaps the Sermon on the Mount or whatever he was speaking. The faith of this boy, amazing. And did you see in those verses, it says twice, just to emphasize, here is a boy with 5 small barley loaves. Do you see that? And 2 small fish. Do you ever sit there and just think, what God has given me isn't enough? He can't use it. He's not giving me much finances, he cannot use that for a miracle. He's not giving me this gift or this experience, he can't use that. And we're like, the little that I have cannot be used by God, we think, or we feel. And yet Jesus could have done this miracle with absolutely nothing. He didn't need 5 loaves and 2 fish. But he chose to take what was small and make it glorious. Because when we give Jesus our little, he is able to do a lot. Because it's not about the amount. It's about your heart ultimately, isn't it? Think about the widow's offering, that parable, that story Jesus teaches where the rich people are coming up and putting in massive lump sums into the offering and doing it for the glory of those around them. They're like, hey, everyone look at what I'm doing. And then this poor old widow comes with just a penny and puts it in secretly. But it was all that she had. And Jesus says she is more blessed because she's given from a place of a good heart, not seeking to bring glory to those around her. Do you see, when you come to Jesus with your little, he can do a lot. I remember when I was 14, became a Christian when I was 13. When I was 14, some of the sixth formers at school who were running the Christian Union, this was over at Sandown High, were leaving, and they asked me and this other girl, Sarah Cooper, I think she's married and on the island now, I can't remember what her surname is, and Clark, and a few others, we started running the Christian Union. And there was about 6 of us to begin with. We didn't have a clue what we were doing. Sarah used to bake the most awesome brownies. They're amazing. And between us, we used to try and prepare, well, a half-baked Bible study, and we'd sit together, the 6 of us, and we'd just eat brownies and talk about Jesus and pray together. And it looked very weak. We didn't know what we were doing. But God, in his mercy over the years, just blessed that work in spite of us and grew it. So by the time we were 18 and leaving, we'd regularly get 40, 50, sometimes 60 young people coming to the Christian Union, many of whom were unbelievers and just coming to experience Jesus and ask their questions of him. And I'm like, wow, we were teenagers. We didn't have a clue what we were doing. God blessed the little that we had and made it into something amazing, even more amazing than we could have imagined. And it wasn't for us, it was all for him. When I was 17, the Christian Union put on this quiz. We wanted to do evangelism. Every Easter we used to go around Cadbury's cream eggs that the churches would fund, and we'd attach a little tract to it and just give it out to people. And they're like, oh, what's that? Eat the cream egg, throw the tract away. But some people read it. And later that year we ran a quiz. And do you know a guy called Lewis Attrell? He's an Olympic gold medalist and grew up, went to Sandown High School and became a Christian. Now is at Grace Church over in Wight. And he came and shared his story of faith. So that was a selling point. Got an Olympic gold medalist coming. And so there was this one guy at school who was the guy everyone avoided because he was a beast. He was huge. And I wasn't the biggest child, but I remember looking up at him. He's like a Goliath-type figure at school, and I used to fear him. I wasn't very popular at school. I used to quake in my boots if I had to walk past him in the hallway. And one of my Christian friends took the boldness to go up to that guy who I would avoid with my life and to say, with knees quivering, will you come to the CU quiz? And he never knew if he would come or not, but he did it. Amazing. And he came. He came, and afterwards he said to me, I'm so glad I was there. And he heard all the message, and I don't know how he responded, but he was there, and he heard the message of the gospel, And what I thought, I was like, that is out of bounds for me. That is too much for me, wrongly. My amazing Christian friend had the courage from the Lord to go up and just, in a small way, say, will you come to the quiz with me? He clearly said yes, and has now heard the gospel. When we bring to Jesus the small loaves and the small fish and say, have it, Jesus can do a lot. And when you look down at what you have, it doesn't look like much. But in the hands of the Creator, it can become everything. See, it's not about the amount. It's about the heart. And so I want to say this. Don't eat your miracle. The little boy could have been there and he could have been like, no, you can't have that. That's my lunch. And sat down and ate his lunch whilst everyone else was just rummaging around, eating the grass, I don't know, whatever. And he could have done that. That would have been fine, I guess. But he didn't eat his miracle. He gave it to Jesus, and he would have got the same amount of food back in return, maybe even more, as we're going to see in a minute. But you see, sometimes we have the small at our fingertips in our hands, and yet we keep it for ourselves. And so the miracle never happens, because we haven't handed it over to Jesus, who can do a lot more with it. Verse 10, Jesus said, make the people sit down. There was plenty of grass in that place, and so they sat down. About 5,000 men were there. probably more than 5,000, because it talks about the men, the males who were there. Probably talking about like 5,000 families. People reckon somewhere between like 12,000 and 20,000 people were there, women and children included. This is a huge crowd. The average town down the road would have had like 200 to 500 people in it. Like Jesus has gone viral just by word of mouth. And this crowd are there. 12, 20,000 odd people come to hear Jesus. And so, verse 11, Jesus then took the loaves, gave thanks, and distributed to those who were seated as much as they wanted. He did the same with the fish. What starts with the boy's surrender is blessed by Jesus, and it becomes abundant. The people ate as much as they wanted. But it looked like less before it was more. You know, when you give to God your money, your bank account goes down when you give God that money. And maybe he will be kind in returning that blessing materially. Maybe, he doesn't promise it, but he does show that through the scriptures. Sometimes happens. But he will definitely repay it spiritually. Whether that's someone coming to Christ, whether that's you're funding a youth worker to operate on the island, and like, wow, young people can hear the name of Jesus through this small offering that I've brought. God will bless you. It might not be in the way you thought when you give to him, but your bank balance decreases at that moment. The boy gave up his lunch at that moment before it multiplied. It gets less before it becomes more. In verse 12, when they had all had enough to eat, Jesus said to his disciples, "Gather the pieces that are left over, let nothing be wasted." So they gathered them and filled 12 baskets with the pieces of the 5 barley loaves left over by those who had eaten. Do you see that? It wasn't just enough. It was more than enough. Jesus knew when he should have stopped to have the exact right amount. Like he's God of the universe, right? This wasn't like a problem that Jesus multiplied too much. He did it to show that there was more than enough to go around. Everyone had their fill, had more than they needed, and there was still leftovers. And they're good stewards of the leftovers, aren't they? They collect them up. There's 12 basketfuls of bread from these 5 small loaves. Perhaps, I don't know, 12 basketfuls, one for each of the disciples to take away for the week and eat for the rest of their week. To remind them, you know, every time they eat it, like, wow, Jesus did this. He multiplied it. Wow. Now maybe we sit here and we feel a bit surprised by this. Like this is a surprising story. But I don't think we should be, because all through the Bible, we see this truth that God is the God of abundance. So think about the manna in the desert that God provided generously, like pieces of flat bread for his people to eat when they had nothing. He provided for everyone the perfect amount, generously in abundance. Think about the promised land that was promised to God's people, a land flowing with milk and honey. It's described as eating without scarcity. Like this is abundance that God promises to the people. When you get there, it's going to be beautiful. Flowing with milk and honey. In Psalm 23, when your enemies are surrounding you, the person can say, "I shall not want, my cup overflows." God's blessing and abundance even in the dark times. In Malachi 3, when he says, "Bring your full tithe into the temple in this," and he says, "See if I will not throw open the floodgates of heaven and pour out so much blessing, there will be not enough room to even store it." In the New Testament, Jesus turning water into wine. There was quantity to go around, but it was also quality wine. It was the best wine they'd ever experienced. In John 10:10, later on, Jesus says, I've come that they may have life and have it to the full in abundance. In 2 Corinthians 9, verse 8, God is able to bless you abundantly so that in all things at all times you will abound in every good work. God's abundant blessing on your life. Philippians 4:19, and my God will meet all your needs according to the riches of his glorious grace in Christ Jesus. Ephesians 3:20, he is able to do immeasurably more than all we ask or imagine. God is the God of abundance. And so it shouldn't surprise us when Jesus takes something small and multiplies it miraculously, because he's the same God who's always been in abundance and always will be. So if you're sat here and you're a believer and God has given you something small, a gift perhaps, like a spiritual gift, like he's given you the gift of administration, he's given you the gift of prophecy, he's given you the gift of help, whatever it is, and you're like, this feels small, and sometimes I feel weak, offer it to Jesus and say, Jesus, will you take this gift and will you use it for your glory to advance your kingdom for my good? And he will. He will multiply it because he is the God of abundance. And if you're a believer and you're not giving your money away to good things, perhaps giving it to the church here, not because we want to build stuff up for ourselves, but so that we can extend the kingdom reach of what this church is doing beautifully. It doesn't go into my pocket. It doesn't go into anyone's pocket in the leadership. It goes into ministry. Advancing the kingdom. We want to be taking the small things that God has had. Like in the Old Testament, it used tithing as a principle. That's 10% of your money. In reality, it was more like 28% because they were giving away their food and their drink, the first fruits as well. So I think 10% is a good starting place, but the New Testament talks about giving generously and cheerfully. And Malachi talks about testing God in this. Keep giving and giving and giving and giving. And just see what he does. He will throw open the floodgates of heaven with blessing. Maybe for you, but definitely for his kingdom. Everything big God does starts with small surrender. So just think, what can God do with my life surrendered to him? What can God do with my heart offering? Because what happens next in the story, Jesus walks on water, which is amazing. We're not going to cover that today. And then the crowds come back. And what do they say? We're hungry. We're hungry, Jesus. They completely missed the point of the miracle, hadn't they? Of course, Jesus would gladly feed them to meet their physical needs. He has compassion on them. He shows them grace upon grace. But they've missed the point. Later on in verse 26, Jesus tells them, very truly, I tell you, you are looking for me, not because you saw the signs I performed, but because you ate the loaves and had your fill. We're not just supposed to look at the miracle and wow at the miracle. It's not an end in itself. And sometimes that's a danger for us. It's there for a reason. Verse 35, then Jesus declared, I am the bread of life. Whoever comes to me will never go hungry, and whoever believes in me will never be thirsty. Do you see? The people were hunting for bread that could satisfy them for just a few short hours. And Jesus says, I am the bread of life. I can give you life forever if you just come to me. It's not the miracle you need. It's the miracle worker. Only Jesus can fulfill your deep hunger in life. And I see so many people, friends that I know, wandering around life, going through, just trying to fill the hunger of their life with so many things that never fully satisfy. God talked about this in Isaiah, I think, where he's like, my people are going to empty dry cisterns when I've got for you streams of living water. You know, we find ways to satisfy ourselves in relationships or with porn or with money or with our career or whatever it is. Some of those things aren't bad, like go and have an amazing relationship, brilliant. But like when we're relying on that to fully satisfy us, something's not right. We're not designed for that. And deep down we know it. Because only Jesus can satisfy, because he is the bread that is life forever. Hunger won't satisfy when you have your fill. The relationship will get hard. The money will run out. The career could fall apart. But if you've got Jesus, and you're fully satisfied in him, then you have everything. Because he is the bread that brings life forever. And in his death and resurrection, he offers you full removal of all the ways that you've gone to satisfy yourself with other things apart from him. And he says, just bring it to me. Lay it down before me, and I will remove all your rebellion and all your failure. Wow. And I will gift you life in my name. And perhaps today, you know you've been running after this and this and this and this, and it hasn't satisfied you. And Jesus is calling you today to come to him and receive life in his name. And you don't have all the answers figured out. You don't fully understand it, but you're like, I want this. I want this, and so I'm going to go after it. If you come to Jesus, you will never go hungry again. Because I'm not coming for food, I'm coming to you. Because what happens with the crowd at the end of this miracle? Verse 14, after the people saw the sign Jesus performed, they began to say, surely this is the prophet who is to come into the world. Jesus, knowing that they intended to come and make him king by force, withdrew again to a mountain by himself. They just thought Jesus was another prophet. Just like Elijah or John the Baptist or whoever. He's just the next guy to come and say, like, the Messiah's coming. But he's not the real deal. They'd missed the point. And they wanted to make him this like political king, you know, who was going to stamp out their enemies. And yet Jesus comes as this servant-hearted, sacrifice-focused king. Completely different to what they were thinking or expecting. Don't make the same mistake. And so as you sit there and just think like, God, will you do a miracle in my life? Will you do a miracle in my life today, God? With the small that I have, will you take it and make it glorious? Because you are the God of abundance. So my guess is there's probably two groups of people here today. The first is if you're a believer. And I just want to encourage us, just like the little boy, to have a spirit of surrender this morning. And to just say to Jesus, Jesus, I will give you what you have given me. Someone once said to me, he doesn't want your everything, like he does in a sense, but he doesn't want all of your money, he wants the first fruits of your money. Do you know what I mean? Like, Jesus doesn't want to just take everything away from you so that you're living on the streets and struggling. He wants you to have a life for him. And yet sometimes we're so reluctant to even give our small, aren't we? For whatever reason, we think we've got to hold on to it for ourselves. And yet when we fully surrender it to Jesus and say, Jesus, take this small offering and just use it for your glory. Make it abundant beyond what I can even imagine. And just bless it. It's not mine, it's yours anyway. And I just give it. Whether it's your gifting, whether it's the experience you've had in your life, whether it's your money, your time, your energy, whatever it is, you just give it to Jesus. There's this small offering and you're like, it's yours. Do with it what you want, Lord. And just sit back, working for the Lord, and just watch what he does. And maybe you'll see it tomorrow. Maybe you'll see it in a year's time. Maybe you'll see it in 20 years' time. Maybe you won't see it in this life, but you'll definitely see it in eternity. When you're standing around the throne and you see someone over the other side, a million rows back, who's like praising Jesus, and you're like, that was because you gave your £20 a month to this charity and someone heard about Jesus. It was a small offering that was made glorious, just like the little boy. Jesus can take your small and make it into a lot. And maybe you're here today, the second group of people and you've never come to Christ. Maybe you've never even heard of Christ before today. It's great you're here. And I just want to say that please do not waste your life going after things in this world that you think will satisfy but ultimately will not. Please don't waste your life in that way, because Jesus has much better life for you. The full forgiveness of sins, to come into his family of believers. This motley bunch, look around at us, like, he's brought us together. Amazing. And he gives you his spirit on the inside of you, so as you still struggle with like finding satisfaction in other things and like just struggle to say no to things, whatever, his spirit helps you to live for him. And he gives you gifts to use for him. And he makes you more like Jesus, so that you bear the fruits of the Spirit. You become more patient, you become more kind, you become more loving, you become more gentle, you become more full of grace, just like Jesus was. If you've never come to Christ, then please consider coming to him today, because he is the bread of life who will fully satisfy. And if you've never known Jesus before, then I want to tell you about grace. Do you know grace? I love this definition by a guy called Ben Stewart. He says this: grace is when undeserving people receive from a kind giver an unbelievable gift, and the response is gratitude and joy. You know, there was a guy called John Newton. Anyone heard of John Newton? He was born in 1775, and his mother was a believer. She was a Christian. His father was completely anti-God and a drunkard. His mother died when he was very young. And John Newton became a sailor. And he would sail the seas back and forth, and he became renowned for his drunkenness, for his foul mouth. People just hated him because he was a piece of dirt. And people treated them that way, so much so that when they were passing past the coast of Africa one time, they threw him overboard and he managed to swim to land. And he got captured by the locals and enslaved for 2 years. He managed to escape later, make his way to the beach and start a fire and just make smoke signals. Like, this is old school stuff. And a ship was sailing by and they came to rescue him. And they took him home. And when he got home to the UK, he sat down and he committed to becoming a slave trader from what he'd all experienced. So it's big business, sailing back and forth, training people for money. And on one of those trips, a huge storm came upon that boat. And it was shaken, and he thought he was going to die. And John Newton got on his knees and he just said, God, I surrender to you. And if you save me, if you keep me alive, I will live for you. And he didn't die. He got really sick, but got home and was sick for a very long time. And yet a friend who despised him before came up to him in that moment at his lowest point and said, John, will you come to church with me? A small offering to the Lord. And he said, yeah, all right. And he went to church that Sunday. He heard the pastor stand up and speak. And there and then he gave his life to Jesus, the bread of life who can fully satisfy. And 3 things were true of John Newton. Number 1, he committed the rest of his life to become a pastor himself. He went around telling other people about Jesus, the grace that he had experienced in Jesus' name, the bread of life that he was now fully satisfied in. Number 2, he went on to become one of the biggest players in the abolition of the slave trade. And number 3, I'm going to invite the band up now because he wrote the song we're about to sing. Do you know it? Amazing Grace. How sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now am found. Was blind, but now I see. Can you help me with verse 2? What was it? 'Twas grace that taught my heart to fear. You're going to have to help me. Keep going. How precious the hour I first believed. Grace, when undeserving people receive from a kind giver an unbelievable gift, and the result is generosity and joy. Grace is what leads to surrender. Surrender is what leads to blessing. And blessing is what leads to abundance. And so today, if you have never come to Jesus, know you can receive grace in his name, the bread of life, who can fully satisfy. Can I just invite you to stand? And if you're able to, just close your eyes. Because, Lord, there's some of us here who are coming today with fresh surrender, and we're just saying, Lord, like that little boy, we just give you all that we've got. We give you our small, our little, and we want you to use it, Lord, for your glory. Work in us today. Give us hearts that are for you, not for ourselves. Give us humility. Help us. And if that's you today, if you want to surrender what you have to the Lord, just put a hand in the air as a sign of commitment. Lord, I'm surrendering to you my money, my energy, my time, my gifts. Father, just pray for these brothers and sisters. Bless them. Bless this desire. And if you're here today and you've never received Jesus as your Lord and Savior, then today's the day. God is working in your heart. If you feel that, that is him working. And Father, I pray for those people here today that they would know Jesus and life in his name. Thank you that he can fully satisfy. Pray that we would go nowhere else but to Jesus. Thank you for the grace that you've shown us. We don't deserve it. We haven't earned it. And yet you've given it us in your kindness. And we respond now in praise, rejoicing, in thankfulness. We bless you, Lord. And now as we stand together, let's sing these words that John Newton wrote back hundreds of years ago, all about the grace that he experienced and the grace that is on offer to you today. Grace leads to surrender. Surrender leads to Jesus' blessing, and his blessing leads to abundance. Let's sing.